I can't believe it's almost February. Time is going by really fast. And overall, January was a really good month. I got a lot done. I'm getting back into writing and I'm finding my routine. And although things can change next month, I'm okay with that. I'm just happy to be easing back into things and really enjoying the process. So, as a recap for my January goals and what I actually accomplished, I wanted to write 12 chapters and I wrote 15 because of that one week where I wrote 10,000 words in 5 days. Overall, I wrote 15,000 words in January, with each chapter being about 1,000 words for this first draft, and I'm more than happy with writing that much. I was struggling last year with writing a lot, so I'm really happy with how my new project's going in month one. Also, earlier this month, I told y'all I'll let you know if writing an outline was actually helpful, and it definitely was, which I feel like is pretty obvious, but it wasn't helpful in the way that I hoped it would be. I wanted to write an outline so that I would have less writer's block, and that's not the case, at least not in the beginning. I still definitely had writer's block. I think my outline wasn't strong. It did include events that I needed to happen in each chapter, but I found myself having a hard time knowing how to explain those events and make them interesting. For example, if I had my main character going to the store and bumping into someone she's been avoiding, I didn't really know how to express that. But during my 5K challenge, I came up with about 5 or so questions to ask myself per chapter that really helped up how much I'm able to write about each event. And there are more questions I also asked per chapter, especially depending on what the chapter was about. But these are the few questions that I asked for every single chapter, and that's really been helping me get over the writer's block. So now moving forward, every chapter is going to have an outline that answers at least those questions. That way, I have a way easier time writing the chapter. And then another January goal was to find literary magazines to apply to. I haven't applied to them, but I wanted to put together a list. And while this is by no means an exhaustive list, I'll put on screen a few of the ones that I found. And I just made a whole Notion template just so I can keep track of what I found and what those different magazines are looking for. Okay, let's get into my February goals. So I wanted to write chapters, I think, 13 to 21. However, I got to chapter 15, and instead of pushing which chapter I want to end on, I'm going to keep it at ending on 21. And that just means I have less to write in February, which is awesome since I'm now back at work. What I am going to do with all the extra time that I have at the end of February is go back to previous chapters, make some edits, and continue working on my outline. I was thinking because I had a really fun time doing my 10K in 5 days, I might do a smaller version of that challenge in February and do something like 5K in 5 days. So right now, I want each chapter to be about 1,000 words. So if I do 500 words a day, then I'll get to where I want to be before the end of February. So adding in 1,000 words a day for 5 days is really going to help me stay ahead of my goal. I also want to spend February revising a short story that I wrote a while ago and working on the flash fiction that I wrote, I think, the end of last year. I really want to have a few different works to have so that when I'm ready to start submitting, I can appeal to a few different magazines because not all magazines are looking for the same thing. And now for a little reading update. I read some pretty interesting books this month. I read Fourth Wing, Twilight, The Love Hypothesis, Love Theoretically, Iron Flame, Hunting Adeline, and I'm in the middle of Onyx Storm. I'm almost halfway done with that one. I liked Fourth Wing. I really enjoyed Iron Flame. I'm loving Onyx Storm so far. Apparently, it's not the last book like I thought it was. There's going to be about 5 books, so I'm hoping the stuff that just came up in Onyx Storm get resolved in Onyx Storm, and I don't have to wait all 5 books to get some answers to some very important questions. Also, Allie Hazelwood's books were new for me this month, and I actually really enjoyed them. They were just really fun reads, and I discovered that I'm really into the fake dating trope. Twilight was a reread just because I randomly thought I want to read Twilight, and then I just went out and bought the books, and they're just kind of fun, silly reads. So I plan on reading one Twilight book each month until I finish them. And then I read Hunting Adeline. I think I only felt compelled to read it because Amina talked about it in a video, and I had already read Haunting Adeline, so I thought, you know what, I might as well just read the second book. And it was somehow worse, but then also better than the first book. I don't know. That's not really saying much because it was just bad all around. And Yeah, that's enough for Haunting Adeline. Also, I'm kind of in a book club and we're reading Gideon the Ninth this month, which I'm excited about because it's sci-fi, I think, and I don't read sci-fi books, so I like trying out new genres and seeing what I like. Aside from that, I plan on reading some more gothic fiction, at least one book, and most likely it's going to be Wuthering Heights. I also need to read the next Twilight book, which I think is New Moon. I need to finish Onyx Storm. So I'm gonna force myself to read those 4 books before I read anything else. And then if I have time, I really want to read this book I just found out about called A Long Time Dead, which is about lesbian vampires, and that's kind of my thing. So I really want to make time to get to that book, but it's just not on my list of priorities right now. So that was my January recap and my February writing and reading goals. I'd love to know what your plans are for February and how your January went.